Yes, Sly and the Family Stone. That is stand um, in memory of one of the great, brilliant geniuses of the 20th century, Mr. Sly Stone. Um, Whew! I mean, you guys know I'm a music person above all else. This has been one of the probably the worst music weeks that I can think of in terms of just monumental deaths that could absolutely shake the core of music fans. We lost two giants this week, two absolute giants, and I don't even use that hyperbolically in this case. Two of the most important songwriters, producers, writers, everything of the 20th century, Sly Stone and Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Both of those men were responsible for so much of the music that came after them. They were musical revolutionaries, both of them. Sly Stone passed away on June 9th at 82 in Los Angeles. His family announced that he passed away peacefully at his home in the Grenada Hills network. He was surrounded by his three children, his closest friends, and extended family, and that is a good thing to see, because there was a while there where it just didn't seem like Sly would ever be in a position where he could be surrounded by his friends and his family. You know, there was a while that he was lost. I mean, you hate to say that, but it is true. The cause of his death was a prolonged battle with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, which is a killer. It's a lung condition caused by damage to the lungs, results in inflammation that limits airflow, significantly impacting breathing. He had been dealing with a lot of health challenges, including reduced lung capacity and difficulties with his voice. You know, that came from years of abusing his body. You know, it's unfortunate to say he's one of those people who drugs got a hold of him, and it did not let go for a very long time. But I'm happy to say that I watched a documentary on him about a month or two ago, and I was actually surprised to see how well he was doing. He had gotten back with his family, his children, his grandchildren. You know, they talked about he was close with his grandchildren and his children for the first time. And so if I can find some solace in the death of somebody like a brilliant genius like Sly Stone, it is that at least when he left here, knowing that he was loved by somebody, knowing that he was loved by his family. Of course, the influence, I can't overstate the influence that Sly Stone had, you know, blending funk, soul, rock and roll, psychedelia. You know, the song we played, Stand, you know, had to have been, I wasn't alive at the time, but I could have just imagined the first time somebody hearing that and just going, oh my God, that's just, you know, radical right there, because it was, you know, Sly and the Family Stone were such a pop culture force. At one point, they were the biggest band in America. They merged, coming out of segregation. They were a completely integrated band with white members, black members, all there together. They addressed race. They addressed cultural issues, social justice, black pride, racism. You know, they influenced other great artists like Miles Davis. Plenty of rappers have sampled them, from Dr. Dre to the Beastie Boys. They influenced Outkast. I don't know how you can even listen to Outkast, the best Outkast records, without hearing the Sly and the Family Stone influence. Tony. I was just listening to Tony a few weeks ago and thinking, man, that sounds like Sly. And because they're from Oakland too. So, wow, man. Wow. It's like I said, it's very almost impossible to overstate his impact. And just like I can say that about him, I can say that about Brian Wilson as well. of the Beach Boys. He died on June 11th. He was also 82 years old. Man. He died right before his 83rd birthday. I mean, records he made back in the 60s, like Pet Sounds, influenced everybody from the Beatles to Kanye West. The best Kanye West records are heavily influenced by the stuff Brian Wilson was doing, bringing orchestras, basically building these mini symphonies into pop music. Pop music is supposed to be disposable. It's supposed to be hollow and empty and just about, I like you, I love you. It's not supposed to have a whole symphony behind it. and man, bringing all kinds of, instruments like glockenspiels and lush strings and pianos and all this orchestration. Paul McCartney actually called God Only Knows the greatest song ever written. And that's saying a lot, considering, Paul McCartney was a part of the biggest band in history, the Beatles. Everybody who's a studio nerd like myself, who loves learning about different studio techniques and stuff, Brian Wilson was right there. He was one of the main innovators of treating the recording studio like it was its own instrument, that he layered sounds with meticulous precision. He used theremins and harpsichords and bicycle bells. The harmonies of the Beach Boys that he arranged were just so, ahead of their time. So many people have used them to the point where musicians say, like, when they're doing those type of harmonies, those are Beach Boy type harmonies, and they're paying tribute to Brian Wilson. He influenced the Beatles, like I said, Elton John, Bruce Springsteen, REM, probably, like I said, strangest, Kanye, the best Kanye West records from about 20 years ago, 20 years ago, was when he was in his Brian Wilson phase, when Kanye was trying to build his own little symphonies and orchestras on rap records. He was very much influenced by what Brian Wilson was doing. That's how I got into Brian Wilson. Really, that's how I got into the Beach Boys, because, I was a big fan of Kanye at that time. And, I was like, oh my God, Kanye's using all these strings and orchestras and all these instruments on his records. Oh my God. And I saw what the influence was, and I was like, wow. This dude was doing this back in the 60s, and he didn't have all the digital equipment that people have today. Today, people have all this digital equipment where they're able to easily, I could use FL Studio or Pro Tools or GarageBand or Ableton or any of these, different. You can do it on your phone now. You don't even need a computer. You could just do it on your phone. This man had to, in the studio back in the 1960s, meticulously do everything. They had to play everything, and that's why the music was so good back during that era, was because they did not have shortcuts to take during that era. They had to play everything. They had to be great at everything. They had to know what the hell they were doing in order to make records. And so to lose Brian Wilson and Sly Stone within 2 days, two of the great revolutionaries of 20th century music, I like that. That is just extremely heartbroken. But I'm at the same time, I'm so happy to see both of them get their flowers that they deserve. So many artists, especially younger artists, have come forward to talk about the influence that their music had on current popular music. I wish more current popular music, to be honest, was influenced by what Sly Stone and Brian Wilson were doing, as opposed to, a lot of the crap that we're getting now from the corporate music industry. But it is good to see that at least, like I said, at least they're getting their flowers. So rest in peace to Sly Stone, and rest in peace to Brian Wilson. Before I get out of here, folks,